Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are not just analyzing a topic. We're stepping into an arena.
That is a very dramatic way to put it, but, in the corporate world, it's really not that far from the truth.
I really want to set the scene for you, for the listener, because I think understanding the context, the feel of the room, is just as important as the numbers we're about to, crunch.
Oh, absolutely. The atmosphere is everything.
So picture this. It's maybe 8:00 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
You are standing outside this heavy, soundproofed oak door on, the 40th floor.
And the air conditioning is just blasting. It's freezing, but your palms are sweating.
Exactly. That's it. Exactly. You're holding an iPad, or maybe it's still a thick stack of paper. And inside that document is, it's the fate of your entire month's work.
All of it.
Take a deep breath, you swipe your badge, and you walk into the boardroom. And sitting there, at the head of this enormous table, is the regional CEO.
Mm-hmm. And maybe the group CFO is dialed in on the video screen, just looming large over the whole room like the Wizard of Oz or something.
Yes. And this is the MBR, the monthly business review.
The MBR, it sounds so harmless, doesn't it?
It does. To the uninitiated, it sounds like a boring status update.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what we did last month. But you and I know better. What is actually happening in this room?
It's a tribunal. That's what it feels like. It's the moment where the narrative, the story you've been telling yourself all month, crashes right into the hard reality of the numbers.
The story you tell yourself. I like that.
Well, you do, right. During the month, you can say, sales are going great, or the team is working so hard, or customers absolutely love the new feature.
Sure, all anecdotal.
Exactly. But the MBR is where the rubber meets the road. It's a crash course in accountability. And frankly, for a lot of executives, it's a survival exercise.
Survival exercise. That's the perfect phrase. And that right there is our mission today. We are going to survive this meeting.
We're going to give you the playbook.
We've taken a whole stack of source documents, realistic dialogue, from a really tense MBR, a strategic financial review, a glossary of what I'm calling battlefield vocabulary, and we're going to decode them.
We're going to teach you executive fluency.
Right. Because what a finance director tells a CEO that revenue is, quote, trailing, or that there's a working capital mismatch, they aren't just using fancy words to sound smart.
No, not at all. They are deploying a strategy. They're using defense mechanisms. It's a verbal chess match.
And if you don't speak that language, you're the one who gets, eaten alive in that room.
Mm-hmm. And this matters to everyone, right? You don't have to be a CFO or a finance person to need this.
Absolutely not. If you're in marketing, if you're in engineering, HR, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you want your budget approved, if you want your project to get that green light, you need to understand how the people who hold the purse strings think.
You have to.
You need to understand the story that's being told behind the spreadsheet.
It's business literacy. At the end of the day, it's the universal language of leadership.
So here's our battle plan for the hour. We are going to dissect this MBR line by line. We'll start at what they call the top line, that's revenue, and we're going to see why selling more can sometimes, paradoxically, be a bad thing.
Right. Then we'll go down into what you're calling the squeeze of costs.
We will. Then we'll tackle the absolute nightmare of a cash flow crisis, navigate some really tricky international minefields involving customs and taxes, and then finally, we'll look at the human element, the toll it takes in HR.
So we're essentially walking down the income statement from the, let's say, optimistic sales promises at the very top, all the way down to the cold, hard reality of cash at the bottom.
Exactly. So let's push open that heavy door and take our seats. Section 1, the top line paradox.
And paradox is the perfect word for this scenario. It really is.
So in our source material, the main character, let's call him the finance director, the FD. He starts the meeting, he puts a slide up, January revenue, $10 million.
Okay, a nice round number. That's a good psychological benchmark. Double digits.
You'd think so. And it gets even better. This number, this $10 million, represents a 5% increase year over year.
Okay, so that's solid.
Right. So compared to last January, the company is bigger. They're selling more stuff. If I'm the FD, I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll get a high five. A good job, team.
But that is not what happens in these meetings, ever.
No. The room just goes quiet because right next to that nice green plus 5% arrow, there's a number in red. And the FD has to admit it. We are trailing behind budget by 3%.
And that is the trigger. That's the moment everything changes. In a high-performance culture, better than last year is It's almost irrelevant.
That doesn't matter at all.
It matters, but it's secondary. What really matters is being worse than the plan. The budget, you have to understand, is the promise you made. You made it to the board, to the shareholders. Breaking that promise is a cardinal sin.
And the boss in this scenario, who is described in our notes as numbers-driven and incredibly sharp, he doesn't even pause to acknowledge the growth. He pounces.
Of course.
And he asks this diagnostic question that every leader listening right now needs to have in their back pocket. Is this a volume issue or is it a pricing failure?
It's such a simple question, but it cuts through so much noise, so much of the potential excuses. Because revenue, at its core, is just a math equation. Price times quantity. That's it.
Right. P times Q.
And if your revenue number is wrong, one of those two levers is broken. It has to be. Did you fail to sell enough widgets? That's a volume problem. Or did you sell them too cheaply? That's a price problem.
The boss wants to know who to yell at. That's what it comes down to.
Laughsies, basically, yes.
If it's a volume issue, he goes after the head of sales. If it's a pricing failure, he goes after, well, probably also the head of sales, but maybe marketing gets dragged into.
It's almost always sales' fault in these scenarios, let's be honest.
So the FD, he looks at his papers and he says, well, it's a mix. He reveals that sales volume actually increased by 2%.
Okay, so that's interesting. The demand is there. People want the product. They are literally shipping more boxes out the door than they planned.
So the warehouse is busy. The trucks are full. Everyone feels like they're winning.
But the revenue is down. How?
Because the ASP, the average selling price, dropped. And it dropped significantly.
ASP. There's our first piece of battlefield vocabulary. It sounds so technical, but it's really the heartbeat of a brand.
Explain that. What does it really tell you?
Your ASP tells you how much the market actually values your product. Not what your marketing says it's worth, not your list price, but what people are willing to pay, on average, day in and day out.
And the FD explains that the drop in ASP was due to, quote, aggressive promotions, specifically in the European market.
Okay, so let's translate that from corporate speak.
Please.
Aggressive promotions means they ran a massive sale. They panicked.
They panicked to hit the volume number.
They slashed prices to move units probably at the end of the month to make the volume numbers look good. But now the FD has to have a defense prepared for this. He can't just say, we panicked.
No, of course not. So he says, and this is a direct quote from the source, we prioritized market share over immediate margin.
Ah, yes, the classic market share defense. It is probably the oldest and most polished shield in the entire corporate armory.
Describe that to me. Is that a legitimate strategy, or is it just a very polite, very corporate way of saying, we screwed up and had to offer a massive discount?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the answer is, it can be both.
Okay.
Conceptually, the strategy makes perfect sense. If you are launching in a new market, like they seem to be doing in Europe, or if you have a big competitor breathing down your neck, you might legitimately say, look, I don't care about making a profit today. I want to own the customer.
So you lower the price to get the product in their hands.
You get them hooked. It's the classic loss leader strategy.
Like when a grocery store sells milk for super cheap, knowing you'll come in and also buy the expensive cereal and everything else.
Exactly. The argument the FD is making is, boss, don't look at that missing 3% of revenue as a loss. Look at it as an investment. We didn't lose money. We bought customer loyalty. We bought market share.
But the boss, in our scenario, he isn't buying it. Or at least he's extremely skeptical. So what are the risks? Why is this so dangerous?
Because price is like a drug. And once you get your customers addicted to a discount, it is agonizingly, painfully hard to get them clean.
You're training them.
You're training your customers to wait for the sale. If you sell your software or your widget or whatever it is at 20% off in January, why on earth would anyone pay full price for it in February?
They won't. They'll just wait.
They'll wait. You erode your pricing power. And that can permanently destroy your ASP.
And if your ASP drops permanently, then what happens?
Then you have to sell so much more volume just to make the same amount of money.
Yeah.
You are running faster and faster on a treadmill just to stay in the same place.
And that's the tension in that boardroom.
That's it. The boss is sitting there thinking, did we just execute a brilliant strategic maneuver to win market share? Or did we just permanently devalue our brand?
So we have a situation where the company is technically bigger because they have more volume, but it's also weaker because it has a lower price.
It's a fragile kind of growth.
Very fragile.
Okay, so let's slide down the spreadsheet. That's the money coming in. Now we have to look at the money going out. This is section 2, the squeeze.
Right, the cost of goods sold. Or COGS, as you'll hear it.
In the MBR, this is where the mood, as you said, usually shifts from tense to hostile. The FD has to report that COGS rose by 7% month over month.
A 7% jump in 1 month.
Yeah.
That's catastrophic. I mean, I want to emphasize this for anyone not in a manufacturing business.
Yeah.
You fight tooth and nail for a 0.5% improvement.
For 0.5%.
For 0.5%. A 7% spike is like a bomb going off in your profit and loss statement.
And the impact of that bomb is summarized in a phrase I really want to unpack. Margin squeeze of 150 basis points.
Okay, let's do a quick deep dive on basis points, because you hear this on financial news all the time. The Fed raised rates 25 basis points, right? And I've always wondered, why don't finance people just use percentages? Is it just to sound smarter or more confusing?
There's probably a little bit of that, but it's mostly about precision and avoiding ambiguity.
How so?
If I tell you margins changed by 1%, that's actually ambiguous. Do I mean a relative 1% change, so like going from 10% to 10.1%? Or do I mean an absolute arithmetic addition, like going from 10% to 11%? It gets messy.
Ah, I see. So basis points clears all that up.
Exactly. 1 basis point is simply 1/100th of a percent, 0.01%. So 100 basis points is exactly 1%. It's a unit of measure.
So if our margins got squeezed by 150 basis points, that means they went down by exactly 1.5%.
Correct. So if you were making, say, a 20% profit margin on your product before, you are now only making 18.5%.
Now, to an average person, 1.5% sounds like nothing. I mean, if I get a 1.5% discount on my coffee, I don't even notice. Why is the boss in this meeting losing his mind over 1.5%?
Because of something called operating leverage. That 1.5% doesn't just disappear into thin air. It comes right off the bottom line. It's a direct hit to your profit.
Can you put that in context?
Sure. Let's say your company operates on pretty thin margins to begin with. Maybe your net profit at the end of the year is usually around 5%. If you lose 1.5% at the gross margin level, you've just wiped out 30% of your entire company's profit.
Wow. Okay. When you put it like that,
It's a huge deal.
so 150 basis points is blood in the water. So what caused the bleeding? The FD points to two things: a surge in raw material prices and logistics bottlenecks.
The classic supply chain 1-2 punch. It costs more to buy the steel or the plastic or the cotton, and it costs more to put it on a boat and get it across the ocean.
But again, the boss asks a really sharp question here. He doesn't just accept inflation or supply chain issues as an excuse. He asks, why wasn't our hedging strategy effective?
And this is where we get into the more sophisticated side of finance. Hedging. This is a big one.
Okay, explain hedging to me like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Or maybe like I'm a smart 12-year-old.
Okay, smart 12-year-old it is. Imagine you run a lemonade stand, and you know for a fact you're going to need 100 lemons next week.
Okay, got it.
Today, lemons are $1 each. But you're worried a big frost might come and suddenly make lemons cost $2 next week. That would kill your business.
Right.
So you go to the farmer today and you say, look, I promised to buy 100 lemons from you next week, but let's agree on the price right now. And you lock in a price of, say, $1.10.
So I'm paying a little extra, a 10-cent premium, for the certainty, for the peace of mind.
Exactly. You've just executed a hedge. If the price of lemons jumps to $2 next week, you look like an absolute genius because you're still only paying $1.10. You've locked in your cost.
So in our MBR scenario, the boss is asking, we should have done that with steel or cotton or oil. We should have locked in the price. Why are we paying these crazy high market rates?
And the FD's answer is really fascinating. It's subtle. He says, our current contracts were locked in before the price hike.
Wait a minute. If they were locked in, shouldn't they be safe? Why is that an excuse? That sounds like a good thing.
It does, but you have to read between the lines. What he's likely admitting to is a volume mismatch.
A volume mismatch. What does that mean?
Okay, let's go back to your lemonade stand. You brilliantly locked in a price for 100 lemons at $1.10. Great. But remember what happened in section 1?
Oh, sales volume was up.
Sales volume was up. You actually sold enough lemonade that you needed 120 lemons.
I see. So my contract, my hedge, only covers the first 100 lemons.
Exactly. For those extra 20 lemons, you have to go out into the open market, what they call the spot market, and you have to pay that crazy $2 price that you were trying to avoid. And that drags your average cost for all 120 lemons way up.
And that explains the FD's solution. He says they're now renegotiating terms with secondary suppliers.
That's what I call the desperation tax. When your primary supplier, the cheap one you have a good contract with, is tapped out, or maybe their ships are stuck in a canal somewhere,
Right.
you have to make a panicked call to the secondary supplier, and that secondary supplier knows you're desperate. They know they have you over a barrel. and they charge you a massive premium for it.
And so your blended cost for all materials just keeps creeping up.
Correct. So the really important lesson here for anyone listening is that growth has a cost. If you grow faster than your supply chain contracts can keep up, your profitability can actually go down because you're forced to buy expensive, last-minute materials just to fill all the new orders.
That is so counterintuitive. We're always taught more sales, more money. But here, it's more sales, a supply chain crisis.
Welcome to the paradox of scaling a business. It's a very real thing.
Okay, so we're making less money on every single unit we sell. Now let's look at the overhead. The lights, the rent, the marketing budgets. This is section 3. OPEX, or what you call the fixed cost trap.
Right. SG&A selling general and administrative expenses. It's the cost of running the business itself.
The FD starts with what looks like a win. He says, we've successfully reduced travel and marketing spend to stay under budget.
Sighs. Yes, the low-hanging fruit.
You sound deeply unimpressed.
It's the most standard, predictable playbook in the world. I call it corporate anorexia. When you miss your profit number, the first and easiest knob to turn is the travel budget. Sorry, guys, no more business class, no conferences this year.
And you slash the ad spend.
Because it's immediate. It saves cash today.
It stops the bleeding for this month's report.
It does. But you have to think about the long term. If you cut your marketing spend today, what happens to your sales pipeline 3 months from now? 6 months from now?
It dries up.
It dries up. You are borrowing from your future to pay for your present. It's a dangerous game.
And the boss, in this scenario, sees right through it. He completely ignores the travel savings and instead points at the fixed cost ratio. He said it's creeping up.
This is why he's the boss. He's looking at the bigger picture. Variable costs like marketing or travel are easy to cut. Fixed costs are different.
What are fixed costs?
Salaries, rent for your office buildings, software licenses, they are like concrete blocks tied around your ankles. If that ratio of fixed to variable costs goes up, your business becomes heavy, it becomes inflexible and slow to react.
And the culprit for this increase is a 3-letter acronym that strikes fear into the heart of every single corporate employee. ERP.
Laughs. Enterprise Resource Planning. The big ones are SAP, Oracle, NetSuite.
Why does the implementation of these systems always seem to blow up the budget? The FD says the fixed costs are up because of initial setup costs for the new ERP.
Because an ERP is the central nervous system of a company. It touches everything, and replacing it is like trying to do a heart transplant on a patient while they are running a marathon.
That's a great analogy.
It's not just about buying the software. You have to hire armies of expensive consultants who charge you $500 an hour just to configure the thing. You have to retrain 5,000 employees on how to use it. You often have to run the old system and the new system in parallel for months just in case something breaks. It is a massive, massive cash drain.
But the FD has a rebuttal ready. He points to a silver lining. He says, the good news is that labor productivity improved by 4% due to process automation.
And that right there is the sales pitch for the ERP. That's the promise. This is what we call the J curve.
For the J curve.
Imagine the letter J. To get to the good part, the upward tick, you first have to go through the dip.
The dip at the bottom of the J.
Right. You spend a fortune on the software and the consultants. That's the dip. You endure months of chaos during the switch. But eventually, if it all works, the software starts to automate the boring, repetitive stuff. The invoicing process becomes automatic. The inventory tracking becomes automatic.
And so you need fewer people to do the same amount of work. Your workforce becomes more efficient.
Exactly. That's the 4% productivity gain. The FD is arguing, yes, boss, I know we spent $1 million on the software, but look, our payroll is already more efficient because of it.
It's the classic corporate tension. Short-term pain and cost for long-term gain and efficiency.
Provided, and this is a big if, provided the implementation actually works, which is never, ever a guarantee.
A very cheery thought. Okay, we've covered the P&L, the profit and loss statement. But now we get to the part of the meeting that I think usually makes people the most uncomfortable. We are leaving the world of opinion and entering the world of fact. This is section 4, the cash flow crisis.
Ah, yes, the old saying, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. You can fake a profit on a spreadsheet using all sorts of clever accounting rules. You cannot fake the balance in your bank account. Cash is reality.
And in our scenario, the bank account is looking pretty stressed. The key metric they bring up here is DSO. Days sales outstanding.
This one's pretty simple. It's How long does it take, on average, for a customer to actually write you a check after you've given them the product or service?
And the DSO in the report worsened from 45 days to 52 days.
That is a massive slide, an extra 7 days.
Again, on the surface, 7 days sounds trivial. Why is that a big deal?
You have to think about the scale. If your company sells $10 million a month, like this one does, 7 days of sales is roughly $2.3 million.
Yeah.
That is $2.3 million of your cash that is sitting in your customer's pocket instead of your own. Meanwhile, you still have to pay your employees every 2 weeks. You still have to pay the electric bill for the factory. You have to pay for your raw materials.
So you're basically acting as a free bank for your customers. You're giving them a 0% interest loan for an extra week.
Exactly. And if you run out of your own cash while you're waiting for that check to arrive, you go bankrupt. It doesn't matter if you are profitable on paper. If you can't make payroll on Friday, the doors close on Monday.
The FD pulls up a report called the Aging Report. I love the names of these reports. It sounds like something from a hospital or a nursing home.
Yeah, it's basically a list of the sinners. Who owes us money and how late are they in paying it?
And the main sinners in this case are a group of distributors in Southeast Asia. They are overdue by more than 60 days. The boss immediately calls this a red flag.
It's a giant, waving, 5-alarm red flag. 60 days overdue usually means it's been 90 days since the sale even happened. You have to ask the hard question. Why aren't they paying?
Right. What's the reason?
Is it because their accounting department is just disorganized? Or is it because they are out of money?
That's the real fear.
Yeah.
If your customer goes bankrupt, that money is just, it's gone. Forever.
Oof.
So the FDA has to take a really hard line. He says, we've halted shipments to these accounts and issued formal notices.
The stop ship order. That is the nuclear option in the world of sales and finance.
Role play that for me. You're the sales director for the Southeast Asia region. The FD and headquarters just cut off your biggest clients. How does that phone call go?
Oh, it is an absolute screaming match. The sales director is yelling, if we stop shipping, they'll just go to our biggest competitor. We are going to lose this client forever. You're destroying my relationships.
And what does the finance guy say back?
The finance guy yells back, they are not a client if they don't pay. They're a charity case. And we are not a charity.
Laughs. They aren't a client if they don't pay. That should be on a bumper sticker in every finance department.
It's absolutely true, though. The FD, in this moment, is prioritizing liquidity over the relationship. And in a cash crunch, liquidity wins every single time. It has to.
But the cash crunch gets even weirder, even more complicated. We have a second source document here, the Strategic Financial Review, and it highlights something called a duty drawback issue.
Oh, this is a really technical headache, but in our scenario, it's worth $2 million of trapped cash.
Duty drawback. It sounds like something out of a pirate movie. Break it down for us.
It kind of does. Okay, here's a simple example. Let's say you're a high-end clothing company in the U.S. You buy the world's best cotton from Egypt.
Okay.
When you bring that cotton into the U.S., the customs office is going to charge you a tax. They call it a duty. Let's just say it's 10%.
So I have to pay that tax to get my material.
Right, but here's the key. You don't sell the raw cotton here. You turn it into a fancy shirt, and then you export that finished shirt to be sold in a boutique in France.
Okay, so it's just passing through.
Exactly.
Right.
And most governments have a rule that says, if you just act as a middleman, if you import raw materials and then export the finished goods, we will give you that initial customs tax back, that refund you get. That's the duty drawback.
I see. It's an incentive to keep manufacturing jobs and facilities in the country,
Yeah.
rather than just moving everything offshore.
Correct. But here's the massive catch. You have to prove it. You need a mountain of paperwork to prove that the cotton that's in the shirt going to France is the exact same cotton you bought from Egypt 3 months ago.
The paperwork must be an absolute nightmare.
It is forensic accounting. And in our source material, it says there are new documentation requirements for origin verification. So what's happened is the government suddenly changed the rules. They want a new stamp, a new form, a new signature. And until you produce that exact piece of paper, they freeze your refund.
So that's $2 million of your own money that the government is essentially holding hostage.
That's what creates a liquidity bottleneck. The money is legally yours, you've earned it, but it's stuck in the system. You can see it, but you can't spend it. So the FD now has to go hire an expensive customs broker to try and untangle all this red tape.
Which, of course, costs even more money.
It always costs more money.
This leads us perfectly into Section 5. Because if you think dealing with one government's bureaucracy is hard, try dealing with two at the same time. We have another situation brewing, this time in Vietnam.
The Vietnam bottleneck,
Right.
another cash trap.
The source says there is $5 million in intercompany receivables that are stuck in the company's Vietnam subsidiary.
Okay, let's unpack that term. Intercompany receivables. This just means that the headquarters, let's say it's in the US, sold something to its own branch in Vietnam. Maybe it was raw materials, maybe finished goods for them to sell locally.
So it's one part of the company selling to another part.
Correct. And the Vietnam branch is supposed to pay HQ back for those goods, but in this case, they haven't.
And $5 million is a lot of money to be stuck. The boss asks a very scary, very direct question. Is this insolvency?
And what he's really asking is our Vietnam branch broke? Are they going out of business? Have we lost that money permanently?
But the finance director says no, it's not insolvency. He calls it a working capital mismatch due to capacity expansion.
This is a classic growing pain. It's actually a sign of success in a weird way. The Vietnam branch has likely spent all of its available cash on building a new factory line or expanding its warehouse. That's the capacity expansion.
So they're asset-rich, but cash-poor.
That's the perfect way to describe it. They own a brand new factory, new machines, maybe new land, but they have $0 in their checking account to pay their bills.
So they're like a person who owns a mansion but can't afford to buy groceries.
Exactly. They can't pay HQ back right now because all of their money is tied up in concrete and steel and machines.
So it's not that the Vietnam business is failing, it's actually that it grew too fast. But from the HQ's perspective, that's still $5 million they can't use to pay their own bills.
And you have to remember, the HQ is already stressed. They've got the $2 million stuck in customs, and they've got the overdue payments from the distributors in Southeast Asia. This is why the boss is sweating. It's a cash crunch coming from 3 different directions at once.
The mitigation plan mentioned in the notes is something called intercompany loan conversion. What does that mean? Is that just, moving numbers around on a spreadsheet to make the problem look like it went away?
It's a bit more than that. It has real legal weight. So instead of demanding that the Vietnam branch pay the $5 million bill immediately, which everyone knows they physically can't do, HQ essentially converts that overdue bill into a formal loan.
How does that help, really?
Well, for one, it sets up a realistic payment schedule. It says, okay, Vietnam, you don't have to pay us today. We'll call this a 3-year loan. You have to pay us a little bit of interest, and you can pay us back slowly over time as your new factory starts generating cash.
So it stops all the overdue alerts from flashing red on the reports?
Yes. It cleans up that messy aging report we talked about. It acknowledges the reality on the ground, that the money is stuck in the factory walls. It's not lost to bad management. It's a way of kicking the can down the road, but in a structured, legal, and responsible way.
Structured can kicking. I think that's the secret essence of corporate finance.
Laughs. You could definitely say that.
Okay, we are now moving into what I have started to call the danger zone. This is section 6, tax, audits, and accounting. This is the part where people can actually go to jail if they mess it up, right?
Or at the very least, get hit with massive, career-ending fines that get them fired. The stakes are very high here.
The source brings up a risk related to transfer pricing, and the boss immediately calls it a red flag for tax authorities. What on earth is transfer pricing?
It connects directly to what we were just talking about. Remember how HQ sold goods to its own Vietnam branch? The price that HQ charged Vietnam for those goods? That is the transfer price.
Okay, but why does the taxman care what price I charge myself? I mean, if I move money from my left pocket to my right pocket, who cares? It's all my money.
The government cares. They care very, very deeply because your left pocket and your right pocket are in different countries with very different tax rates.
Walk me through the scam. How do companies use this to cheat on their taxes?
So imagine your HQ is in a country with a high tax rate, like Germany, let's say 30%.
Yeah.
But your Vietnam branch is in a country with a low tax rate, say 15%.
Okay.
The scam is to have the German HQ sell the goods to Vietnam at a ridiculously low price, let's say for $1, basically at cost. That means the German HQ makes 0 profit. And if you make 0 profit, you pay 0 tax in that high tax country.
I see where this is going.
Then the Vietnam branch takes those goods it got for $1, sells them to a real customer for $100, and makes a huge $99 profit. They have to pay tax on that profit, but they only pay it at the low 15% rate in Vietnam.
You've effectively and legally just shifted your profits from the high tax country to the low tax country.
Exactly. And governments, especially high tax ones, absolutely hate this. They see it as cheating them out of their fair share.
So to combat this, there's a standard called arm's length pricing, which sounds a bit like a dance move.
The arm's length principle means you have to be able to prove to the tax authorities that the price you charged your own Vietnam branch is the exact same price you would have charged a total stranger, a third-party company standing at arm's length from you.
You give me a real-world analogy.
Think about selling a used car. If you sell your old car to your spouse for $1, the tax office knows that's not a real fair market transaction. That's basically a gift. But if you sell that same car to a stranger on Craigslist, you'll haggle and fight for the best possible price. Maybe you get $10,000. That $10,000, that's the arm's length price.
And in our MBR, the finance director says their defense is that they are using a Big Four accounting firm for benchmarking.
That is the only real defense. You pay an enormous amount of money to Deloitte or PwC or EY or KPMG, and they write you a very thick, very detailed report that says, yes, based on our analysis of the market, this transfer price fair and at arm's length.
So when the auditors from the German tax office come knocking, you can just hand them this massive binder and say, look, the experts said it's okay.
It's an incredibly expensive insurance policy. But if you get audited on this and lose, the fines and penalties can be in the tens of millions.
But there's more bad news in this section. We have to talk about the write-off.
The dreaded write-off, never a fun conversation.
The finance director has to announce that they are increasing the allowance for doubtful accounts by $500,000. And the reason is the worsening credit profile of retail clients.
Okay, so this connects directly back to our cash flow discussion earlier.
Yeah.
The allowance for doubtful accounts is basically an accounting bucket where you put money that you're pretty sure you're never going to see.
You're giving up on it.
You're officially admitting, I sold $500 K's worth of stuff on credit, but I have a very strong feeling these particular customers are going to go bankrupt before they pay me.
And the boss is angry because, as the source says, it hits net income directly.
Yes. It's not a cash expense today, but for accounting purposes, when you increase that allowance, it immediately counts as an expense. It reduces your profit for the month by the full $500 K. It's a direct punch to the gut of your net income.
The finance director justifies this punch to the gut as being a conservative approach that they're taking before the external audit.
And this is actually very smart politics. It's all about controlling the narrative. It is much, much better for you to take the hit now, voluntarily, and report it yourself.
As opposed to what?
As opposed to having an external auditor from a big firm come in next month, find all this bad debt that you were trying to hide, and then force you to restate your earnings. That makes you look either incompetent or, even worse, like you were committing fraud.
But taking the hit now makes you look prudent.
It makes you look prudent. We're just being responsible, boss. We're cleaning up the books.
We want to ensure balance sheet integrity.
Exactly. Even if it hurts this quarter's bonus pool, it's the lesser of two very painful evils.
Wow. We have survived the financial minefield. Let's get to the final section of the MBR. Section 7. People and predictions. Because at the end of the day, businesses are run by humans, not just by spreadsheets.
The HR update, always a tricky part of the meeting.
So headcount is flat. They have a hiring freeze in non-essential sectors. But there is a problem bubbling up in the IT department. The turnover rate is much higher than expected.
And in a company that is in the middle of a chaotic, expensive rollout of a new ERP system, losing your key IT staff is an absolute disaster. It's like losing your pilots mid-flight.
So the boss asks a very direct, very tough question. Is it compensation or is it leadership? Is the pay too low or is the manager just bad?
That's a very tough question to answer on the spot. The finance director dodges it slightly, saying they are reviewing the incentive scheme. But this highlights a key hidden risk of everything we've talked about.
How so?
Remember Section 3, the corporate anorexia. We cut costs. We froze hiring.
Right.
Well, when you freeze hiring and cut costs, who picks up the slack? Your existing employees. They get overworked, they get stressed out. They're probably working nights and weekends to get this ERP project live. And if the job market is hot, which it almost always is for good IT people, they just leave.
So the efficiency we were bragging about earlier, that 4% productivity gain from the ERP, that might actually be causing a brain drain in a critical department.
It is the hidden cost of cost cutting. You save a little money on payroll, but you lose invaluable institutional knowledge. And hiring a replacement for that senior IT person is going to cost you twice as much as it would have to just keep them.
It's a really vicious cycle. And finally, we get to the forecast. The look ahead. The finance director has to deliver one last piece of bad news. He's revising the forecast for the rest of the year downwards.
Never a popular move with the leadership team.
The reason he gives is exchange rate volatility. And he predicts a U-shaped recovery, starting from Q3.
Let's visualize that for a moment. A V-shaped recovery is what everyone wants. That's a sharp drop, followed by a very quick, sharp bounce back, like a rubber ball hitting the floor.
But a U-shaped recovery is different. It's not as good.
A U-shaped recovery means we drop and then we drag along the bottom for a while. That flat part at the bottom of the U, that's a period of stagnation before we eventually, slowly start to climb back up.
So he's basically telling the boss, it's going to be bad for a while. This isn't a quick fix. Settle in.
He is managing expectations downwards. He's telling the boss to brace for a few more of these very tough MBR meetings.
And the boss's reaction is to demand a downside scenario with additional cost-saving measures.
Which brings us completely full circle, doesn't it? If the recovery is going to be slow and painful, they will need to cut even more costs to protect the bottom line, to protect their profit.
So more marketing cuts, more travel freezes, maybe even layoffs this time.
That's what's on the table. And of course, if you do layoffs, that leads to more turnover in your key departments, which puts projects at risk, which hurts your future revenue.
It's the spiral.
Yeah.
And the finance director's entire job is to keep that spiral from spinning completely out of control.
That's the job.
So the meeting ends. The finance director gathers their papers, probably wipes the sweat off their brow, and walks out of that boardroom.
And hopefully they still have their job for another month.
Let's just summarize what we just witnessed. This wasn't just a report on numbers. This was a narrative of survival.
No, it really was. We saw a finance director have to defend a really mixed revenue. Bag sales volume is up, but price is down. We saw them have to explain a painful margin squeeze caused by supply chain costs and a hedging strategy that didn't quite work as planned.
They had to navigate a multi-front cash flow crisis, with overdue payments from customers in Southeast Asia and a customs nightmare holding $2 million hostage.
On top of that, they had to manage the internal panic over a $5 million cash bottleneck in their own Vietnam subsidiary, defend the company against huge tax risks with transfer pricing, and then take a $500,000 hit to the chin for bad debt.
And after all of that financial chaos, they still have to go figure out why the IT guys are quitting.
It just really highlights that the role of a modern finance leader, or really any business leader today, isn't just about reporting the weather.
I love that phrase.
It's about building the shelter. It's about constant, relentless problem solving in the face of chaos.
You don't just stand there and say it's raining.
Yeah.
You have to be the one passing out the umbrellas.
Precisely. Or, even better, you have to be the one who saw the clouds forming and built a dam last year.
Now, here is where I think it gets really interesting. I want to leave our listener with a final provocative thought to chew on.
Go for it.
We heard a lot of explanations, a lot of reasons in this meeting. The market shifted. Exchange rates are volatile. The government's documentation requirements changed. If you were the boss sitting at the head of that table, how much of that would you actually accept as a valid reason?
That is the $1 million, or in this case, the multi-million-dollar question.
The source material mentions this U-shaped recovery and market softening. Is that a legitimate external force that nobody could have predicted? Or is that a failure of foresight on the part of the leadership team? When a CFO says market conditions shifted, is that the objective truth? Or is it just a very sophisticated, very well-articulated form of damage control?
It really raises the fundamental question of agency, doesn't it? How much control does a leadership team actually have over its destiny versus how much are they just riding the massive waves of the global economy?
Exactly. Because when the market goes up, I guarantee you they take full credit for their brilliant strategy. But when the market goes down, suddenly it's the challenging macroeconomic conditions.
It's the classic attribution error. Success is my genius, failure is bad luck.
And so maybe, just maybe, the art of business reporting is less about finding the objective truth and more about who can tell the most compelling story about why things went wrong.
A fascinatingly cynical thought to end on.
Hey, I'm just reading between the lines of the report. So to everyone listening, the next time you see a quarterly report from a public company or you sit in your own company's town hall update, look closer. Look for the ASP. Look for the one-time adjustments. Look for the U-shaped promises. And ask yourself, what is the narrative and what is the number?
And always check the cash flow.
Always check the cash flow. Thanks for diving in with us. We'll see you on the next one.